Outlaw Sports is brought to you by Molson Canadian, made from Canada, and Rocky Mountain Barbecue, Alberta barbecue cuisine at its best.
Ian Busby of the Calgary Sun joins us today, and we're going to look at the matchup between the Calgary Stampeders and the BC Lions. In the last part of the year, the Lions came to McMahon Stadium on a cold night without Travis Lulay, and they got embarrassed, got handed their ass really by a hungrier Calgary Stampeder team in a nothing game. But is there something to be taken out of that? Is there a warning shot, or is it something that the Stampeders can hang some momentum on going into BC Place?
Well, they can actually hang their momentum on that. When Drew Tate was in there and chucking the ball around, they did some good things. They had a nice long touchdown against and that was their number one defense, but they weren't resting a whole lot of players on that side of the ball. Yep. So that can be a big positive for them, especially when you look at how many times you lose to a team in a row, you start to get this mental block. And I think the Stamps had that with the Saskatchewan Roughriders before beating them in the West semifinal. You get that mental block, and sometimes it's a big hurdle to get over. They've already covered that hurdle. Now, obviously, the Lions did not want to play in the cold. They shut down the whole thing early in that game. They were down 31-0, and it was over. Yeah. You felt like the air was out of the balloon, and they were just on to the next week when they didn't have to play outside anymore. But the good part about that was when the Stamps wanted to move the ball early in that game, on offense especially, they absolutely did. And the big factor in this game is whether John Cornish can run against this defense when in the first couple of meetings this year, he didn't do it all that great. And obviously the big one being the 6 carries for -1 yard back in week 5. Yeah. Seems like a long time ago, but I'm sure it still plays in their minds.
Perhaps the turning point for his season though too, right?
Yeah, it was the turning point. And it was a little bit of, they had a bye week after that. He got a little bit healthier. They rejigged the offensive line and they came out with a different system, and things took off from there. But yeah, that was the turning point of the whole year, because it could have gone south after John Cornish comes out after that game, complains about his blocking, getting hit in the backfield. It could have went the other way, and it didn't. It went the positive direction, and the Stamps really have to be thankful of that.
How do you like these matchups? First of all, when you look at the BC offense with Lulay running it against the Stampeders defense?
Well, the funny thing is that with Lulay in there, he's as mobile as a quarterback as you're going to find, and he's really tough to get to. So they make sure that they get to Lulay, but also don't let Andrew Harris, squirt out of the backfield and be that outlet receiver for him. Because back in that Week 5 meeting, that's what he was. He had 2 receiving touchdowns that were really, devastating to the Stamps defense. Because when you think you've done everything right in the play, you got to the quarterback, you've got the receivers covered downfield, and then he just dumps it off to a guy who can make huge things happen. That's the thing they have to be most wary of.
Where do you think the key matchup is overall when you look at this game? Where do you think the deciding factors could be, especially playing indoors at BC Place?
Well, one guy that I think the Stamps really have to worry about is Tim Brown, the returner. He's the special teams player in the West this year. Every game he seems to have either a punt return or a kickoff return where he absolutely turns the momentum in the favor of his team. Like, he'll get a 30 or 40 yarder. He might not always score, but he really gets a huge chunk of yardage that they don't have to get on offense, and he becomes that sort of game changer that they need. And that's a guy. Stamps are great on coverage the latter half of the year. Mark Killam has done a great job with his special teams unit. He's using a lot of young Canadian guys who haven't been very experienced in this league. Matt Walter being one of them, who never really played special teams in college. They've had to patch some holes, obviously, with this team, and they've done a great job in coverage, and they're going to have to do a great job against Tim Brown.
Okay, let's look at the East matchup just quickly, because I picked the Argos to win by two touchdowns, and you laughed at me.
No, I didn't laugh.
Yeah, you did. You kind of gave me that look that you had.
I think you're just funny overall. And I'll own up to.
And I give you the credit because you picked the Stamps. I thought it was going to come down to a Sandro field goal, but it could have. I mean, who knows? But yeah. So anyhow, looking at this matchup, I sleep through the East. I have to admit, because I'm so sick and tired of Montreal being there. That's why I want to see this one. Not that they won't be if they had the all teams in one conference matchups, but. I mean, we've seen this movie so many times. One thing you have to, Chad Owens was pretty darn exciting in that game, and Ricky Ray when he's on, and it was proof in the pudding and showing that the Eskimos did make a stupid move getting rid of the guy.
Yeah, well, that was, and the picking of the starter I thought was a horrible decision too. I thought Matt Nichols was the guy who just seems to rally that offense for the Eskimos, and that was the big problem, because that Argos defense really showed up. They really put some pressure in Kerry Joseph's face, and when you get a lot of pressure like that, you have to be able to handle it. And the key part was them forcing a fumble on Corey Boyd early in that game. The Argos defense, I think, is going to be able to handle the Alouettes offense, because they're not going to get a whole lot of sacks. I mean, Chris Jones doesn't care about sacks. He wants knockdowns and turnovers. So he wants the ball out.
Yeah.
So I think that this team is poised to go to the Grey Cup and represent the East, the Argos being, because they have enough weapons on offense. If Chad Owens does break one, as you said, that's going to be a huge difference, because the Alouettes on the other side, they don't have the same type of game-changing guy.
Well, they still have Cavillo.
They still have Cavillo, and I think
they still got a pretty good receiving core.
Yeah, the Argos have to make it not close early. I think that if it's close all the way through, it gives the Alouettes a better chance of being able to strike deep. And I don't know how healthy their offense is, because they've lost some key players in the last few weeks. And when they had Jamel Richardson, S.J. Green, Brandon London, and Brian Bratton, that's a very dangerous receiving core, but almost 3/4 of it's been hurt the last part of the year. And when they don't have as many options, Calvillo has to go to one guy, and it really becomes obvious what they're trying to do.
So who are you liking? The Argos?
I like the Argos, yeah.
You know what? I'm going to Argos with the field goal on this one.
Well, you should go the opposite of me, so that you can brag about how much better you are at picking the East.
People just know that.
Yeah, I'll never pick the Eskimos to win an Eastern Division playoff game again.